All right, welcome back to YouTube. I kind of wanted to wait a bit. I didn't really like a lot of the lines since I was betting a lot of underdogs today, so I did want to wait to see if the lines moved our way, and most of them did. So I'm kind of glad I waited. Yesterday, one of those days that just piss you off. Could have been a 4-1 day so easily. Samford ended up losing the game by 2. It was pretty close the entire game. They brought it, they was tied with like 3 minutes left, but they just ended up getting losing to Furman in the end. They just got outworked, honestly, especially on the boards. North Texas, they led by as much as like 15 at some points early in the game, kept letting the lead dwindle, and then they pulled away at the last second, last couple minutes, -4, and then 17 seconds left. They miss a shot, get a rebound, miss a shot, and the other team goes up and misses a shot. So, yeah, just one of those bullshit days. I still can't believe the North Texas one because they're down 4 and the other team shoots a buzzer beater 3. Like, it's not like they ran up to try to get a quick shot. They literally took their time and shot at the buzzer instead of giving one more chance for North Texas to go to the free throw line. I swear, if I was on the other side of that game, it's not covering every single time of the week, but it is what it is. UConn game, another game that pissed me off. They were down like 9 or something at half. Ended up winning by 11. Just pathetic first half. I don't know what it is with this UConn team, but they start out games so slowly that if I ever like them moving forward, I'm just going to live bet them at half because this team cannot wake up for these games. They completely dominate the second half. First half, they just got embarrassed. It is what it is. UIC, probably one of the most non-sweat bets I've ever had. They started out a little slow, but they end up winning this game by like 20 points as pretty big dogs, so that one worked out. In Boise, up and down, they were dominating, and then some points they weren't, but they ended up winning this game by 10, so comfortable cover. It is what it is. Could have been 5-0, easily day. I just can't seem to get lucky sometimes, but it is what it is. Let's move on to the games for tomorrow. All right, game number 1, we have New Hampshire heading on the road to play Maine. Now, this just seems like a great spot for Maine to dominate this pretty mediocre New Hampshire team. If you look at kind of where New Hampshire likes to shoot, they basically only shoot threes and mid-range shots, and they don't shoot the 3 well at all. They're ranked 266th from 3. Maine hasn't defended the 3 very well, but I don't think, if you want to let them take it. Like, they're taking threes because they have no other shot. They're running out of time. They're not a very good three-point shooting team. And the other shot they like to take the most, which is the mid-range shot, is something that Maine defends really well. They're 38th in the nation at defending the mid-range shot. So I think it's going to be really hard for this New Hampshire team to find any scoring chances. On the other side of the floor, this Maine team is going to have a lot of success. They're ranked 53rd in points off steals. This New Hampshire team turns the ball over a ton. They average 15 per game, and that's against an average opponent. And they've played some really bad players, so I'm expecting like 20 turnovers plus this game for Maine's in terms of steals. Mid-range and near basket shots, threes, they have an advantage everywhere, especially mid-range where they shoot it 121st best in the nation. I just think this is a solid mismatch spot for a Maine team that is actually a pretty good team. If you look at the power ratings at home, Maine has the 44th best home advantage in college basketball. They're borderline a top 100 team when they're playing at home in terms of efficiency. And New Hampshire, they're just a bad team. Either way, they're outside of the top 350 in basically every situation. If you look at the last 5 rating, this Maine team has been playing really well. They're 82nd in the nation in terms of their efficiency in the last 5 games. This New Hampshire team still hasn't broken the top 300 even in their most recent games. The only thing that New Hampshire has for them going is consistency, and they're consistently dog shit. So I don't see a spot here where Maine doesn't run away with this game. I think the only way they don't cover is in a backdoor situation where they're resting players. But as home favorites, Maine is 3-1 this year. As way underdogs, New Hampshire is 3-8 against the spread. So I think it's a great spot to back a pretty solid Maine team. All right, heading into game number 2, we have Ohio State heading the road to Penn State. Now, I fully understand why people would be on Penn State here. I was on them last night at -2.5, but I think 3.5 is just a little bit too much, where I think there's a good chance that Ohio State can cover this game. Now, Penn State, on paper, they're a great team. They have a better record than Ohio State, but they really have not been playing well. If you look at their most recent games, they have kind of looked a little questionable. They've lost 6 of their last 7, including against Indiana while they were at home. They only beat Rutgers, a team that you never really want to be proud of beating them. They lost to an Iowa team. Like, they've been losing close games. I'll give them that. They haven't been getting blown out, other than that Illinois game, which was pretty pathetic. But other than that, they've been keeping it pretty close against good teams. Now that they're coming back home, you could argue, yeah, maybe they're due for a solid bounce back game, especially with Ohio State maybe in a letdown spot after dominating Iowa and beating Purdue. But this Ohio State, even when they lose, they also keep games close. Wisconsin, they lost by 2. Indiana, they lost by 1. Oregon, they lost by 2. To me, this game is screaming a close one-possession game between two solid teams. Penn State may be the more desperate team, but both these teams are basically at the same record. So I don't really see that. I just think this is an Ohio State team that has been playing better. If you look at the last 5 games rating-wise, we have this Ohio State as 27th, last 10, 24th. Penn State, last 5, 37th, last 10, 61st. So when I look at these two teams, it seems like Ohio State just plays games really close against these top teams, and sometimes this Penn State team loosens up a little bit. I do think that Penn State at home, especially if I don't know if they do the whiteout in college basketball, but they do have a really good home crowd. But this Ohio State team, despite the fact that they don't show up as much in away games, I think they can keep this game close. If the number was still 2.5, I'd probably take a chance on Penn State. I just think this line is moved a little bit too much for a game that I think could come down to the wire in a free throw battle. So give me Ohio State. They've had the significantly harder schedule this year, 17th to Penn State's 72nd. They're riding in with a lot more momentum. This Penn State team has looked really rough, and especially in this college teams when it comes to like competitiveness. Sometimes players start getting mad at each other. Ohio State, offensively, they're not the most impressive team. They're pretty solid everywhere, but the only place where they're not solid is mid-range, but Penn State doesn't defend the mid-range very well. I do think they're going to find some success on the offensive boards in this matchup. Penn State, they're a team that likes to shoot near basket. Ohio State defends the near basket pretty well. In terms of points off steals, again, Ohio State takes care of the ball. They're the 4th best in the nation. I just think this Ohio State defense is going to stifle this decent Penn State team. I think the only advantage that Penn State does have is free throws. They do shoot the free throw pretty well. I think that's going to be the difference in this game. I think Ohio State is going to score a bit more effectively, just in field goal percentage. But I think Penn State is going to have a ton more free throw opportunities, especially with the home whistle. So I think it can go either way. I don't personally love this bet, if I'm being honest, but I do think that's just slightly, model-wise, it's just slightly too many points. So I'm going to take a shot here on Ohio State as the underdog here. All right, heading on to game number 3. We got Northern Kentucky heading on the road to Detroit Mercy. Now, I think this number is a little bit too big with Northern Kentucky being on the road. If you have looked at Northern Kentucky's away spreads, they are 0-8 against the spread as the away team. 0-2 as away favorite, 0-6 as away underdog. And on the other side, this Detroit team is 4-2 as home underdogs, 1-0, so they're 5-2 at home. I think this number is just a little bit too big. I'm surprised it moved. I was almost going to take this last time at 6.5, and I moved to 7.5. I think at this point, it's too big of a number. This Northern Kentucky team, yes, they're better than Detroit, obviously. Almost any team is, but I just think this is too big of a number for how bad Northern Kentucky's been playing, especially on the road. If you look at last 5 rating, this Northern Kentucky team has been ranked 350th. They've almost been worse than this Detroit team. And Detroit has a top 100 home advantage. They have been playing a little bit better when they're playing at home. And Northern Kentucky, I think they're more of a team that shows up in big games. They have kind of been known to fall flat in these games that they should win handedly. And if you look at their last 5 games, both these teams have lost all of their games. This Northern Kentucky team lost by 20 against Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wright State by 8, Cleveland State by 18, Oakland by 15, Youngstown by 11. They just kind of be getting trashed around. Yes, if you look at a similar situation where they played a really bad team on the road, they played IU Indy, a team around the ranks of Detroit Mercy, and they only won that game by 2. Seems like whenever they do go on the road against these bad teams, they don't show up nearly as much as when they're playing on their home court. So again, I think this number is a little bit too big. If you look at the last 4 games that Northern Kentucky has played, where they've had to travel over 200 miles, they've lost all 4 of them. And then if you look at the individual matchups, Detroit, they played a harder schedule. Not by much, but they technically have. And if you look at where this Northern Kentucky team likes to shoot, they like to shoot mid-range and threes, and they get a lot of second chance opportunities. And they also shoot some threes. From three, Detroit is a top 80 team at defending the three. Northern Kentucky might find some success in the mid-range. But again, I don't think that's an efficient shot, especially when you're not on your own home court. And in terms of points off second chance opportunities, Detroit takes care of their own boards. Turnovers might become a problem, but I don't think it's as big of a problem at home. And on the other side, Detroit will have some success scoring. Northern Kentucky is not that great of a defensive team. And I think offensive boards, Detroit's going to find some success. And from their mid-range. So I think this game, Detroit, I don't know. At home, I just think this is too big of a number. I have this model as a 4-point win for Northern Kentucky. I'm going to give a shot here on Detroit Mercy. In game number 4, we have Green Bay heading on the road to play Oakland. Now, Green Bay is one of my favorite teams to fade. And against this Oakland team that kind of shows up big time against these bad teams, I really think that they're going to crush them. I think this number is a little bit too short on Pinnacle at 14. But yeah, if you just look at the matchups, this Green Bay team, they don't really do anything. They're like a classical shit team that just shoots up threes and occasionally plays near basket. They'll find some success from three. They're not that great with. They'll probably shoot maybe 40% from three if they're shooting really well. But realistically, I think they played so many bad teams that number's inflated. They're probably not going to shoot that well, especially on the road. And this Oakland team defends the near basket decently well. Again, they're not a crazy defensive team, but one of the things that you don't really want to let Green Bay do is shoot free throws because they are a really good free throw shooting team. I think Oakland is going to run the floor with them. I think it's going to be hard for Green Bay to find any offense. On the other side of the board, this Oakland team, they're a big team, and they play the boards really well. They shoot mostly threes, and then they get the boards and they score those. They're 71st best team at getting shots off on the second chance opportunities. Green Bay, one of the worst teams, ranked 336 in giving up points off second chance opportunities. I just think that this Oakland team is going to shoot well enough to cover this number. Now, this team doesn't lose very often. This Oakland team, they've been a pretty solid team as of late. But when they do lose, they're a team that historically has bounced back big time after losses. And they're just coming off a tough road loss to Robert Morris in a game that they absolutely should have won. So I think they're going to show up big time to this game. I think this Green Bay team is just atrocious. They get blown out every other game. And I think this is just a spot. They've on like a 15-loss streak now. Like, they're not motivated. The season's almost over. Now they're heading on the road after they just got blown out by Cleveland State by 15 in their last game. Now they're heading another 200 miles. I don't know. I just think this is too big of a spot here. Give me Oakland to win this game by 20. All right, I'm giving South Alabama one more chance. But this just seems like a classic revenge spot. This ULM team just beat the South Alabama team. I had them bet as favorites on the road, and now they're heading back home after they just lost 2 games on the road trip. This just seems like a classic revenge spot. ULM just embarrassed them. They beat them by 11 points, a team that was 11-point underdogs or 12.5-point underdogs. This just seems like a classic, like, fuck you. Like, you guys embarrassed the shit out of us, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. ULM, that was the first game they won on like a 10-game win streak. They shot way too well. South Alabama just did not show up for that game. After a loss, USA is 4-2 against the spread. After a win, ULM is 1-3. And as home favorites, they are 5-6, which isn't phenomenal. But ULM is 4-5 as away underdogs. These two teams are on paper are on completely different levels. And now, this is just going to be a team that's going to be pissed off. I just think they just go, ULM goes in there and South Alabama just plays their heart out because that shit was super embarrassing. There's really no other reason. I have this modeled at 18. I had it modeled at 18 last time they played, but now now we're getting them in a significantly better spot at home after they've lost 2 games in a row, playing the same team that just beat them as big underdogs. I think this is a great slam spot. I might take this game at 2 units. Yeah. All right, and those are the 5 games that I like the most for today. First game starts in about 2 hours, probably an hour and a half when you're seeing this. I am betting a lot today. I feel like I've been getting really unlucky lately, and I really want to have a good bounce back day. So I'm probably betting more than I usually do. But I'm briefly going to go through these games. Stonehill, I just think they are the significantly better team here against Wagner. Wagner is, they're playing with a lot of momentum. They're playing really well lately. But I do think the Stonehill team is going to find success. The shots they do take are 3 points and near basket. And they're going to have success against this Wagner team that doesn't defend either of those spots very well. On the other side, Wagner, they like to shoot mid-range shots and get second chance opportunities. And they're not going to find any success because the Stonehill team defends their own boards extremely well. So I think Wagner is going to be stifled enough on defense where this mediocre Stonehill team will get enough points here to cover the short spread at home. So solid spot for Stonehill, I think, in my opinion. Game number 2, we have FDU at home. I think they're just a better team here. They've been pretty solid. They've had a much harder schedule. And I think they're going to dominate at home where they typically get a shit ton of steals. If you look at this Lemoyne team, they've been really bad lately. And the only shot that they really like to take is a 3. FDU defends a 3 at the 23rd best in country. I think that's going to stifle their offense. They're going to have to shoot shots that they're not good at, near basket shots. If you look at FDU, what do they like to shoot? They shoot mid-range 3s. They're not that great of an offensive team, but I think they're going to do enough in getting their right 75th in points off steals. And this Lemoyne team is so bad, they turn the ball over a lot. So I think this number is a little bit too small given the matchups here. Game at number 3, we have IU Indianapolis heading on the road to Robert Morris. I think Robert Morris is a good team, but I think this number, now that it's at 9, is a little bit too much disrespect to this IU team that can score and they can defend decently. This Robert Morris team, they like to shoot near basket and mid-range. The one thing that I'm sorry, I got mixed up between 2 different games. This Robert Morris team, they're not that great offensively. They're ranked 211th. They're probably going to get a decent amount of free throws, but they don't really shoot the ball well. They're borderline top 200 and everything. Again, I don't think they're that much better than IU, not 9 points better. They'll find some success in the mid-range, but they're not going to find any chance on the second boards where they typically get a decent amount of points. IU is ranked number 80 in defending their own boards. On the other side, IUPUE is going to find some success from 3. They're ranked 150th to RMU's 329th in 3-point defense. And they're also going to find some success on the offensive boards. The only thing that Robert Morris defends well is the paint. And IU Indianapolis does not shoot really at all in the paint. Their average proximity is 361, which means they're only basically shooting 3s and long 2s. So give me IU Indianapolis to cover this big spread on the road. Game number 3, we have Tennessee Tech and Moorhead. I'm just going to keep fading this Moorhead team. I think they're dog shit. They were decent last year. I think they're really bad this year. I think this line is a little bit disrespectful for a Tennessee Tech team that has been playing pretty consistent ball. I think they're being a better team than Moorhead has been this year. Even though the records indicate that Moorhead's been a better team, I think they're due for some regression. So, I think Tennessee Tech could win this game outright, but I think they cover this number. Liberty, I think this line has moved a lot, actually, since last night. I did bet it last night at -2.5. This Kennesaw team, they're playing way over their head. They're playing really well at home. I think they've covered every single game they played at home. But this Liberty team, I think, is just miles above them, especially defensively. I think Kennesaw is going to be stifled. I think this, I wouldn't bet it at 3.5, 4.5, but I think if you can find this at 2.5 or 3, I think Liberty goes on the road and beats them here, where they've been playing much better ball on the road. Illinois, Nebraska. I can see why a lot of people are probably on Nebraska, the bounce back at home spot. I think this Nebraska team sucks, especially on offense. This Illinois team has, they've been through they've been through shit, right? Like they got blown out in a couple games. They got embarrassed by Maryland at home. I think this team has been really lit, like a fire's been lit under them. as of lately. I think they're going to find success shooting the near basket shot this game. They're going to find a little bit of success on the boards. But I think the bigger difference is going to be on defense. I think this Nebraska team is going to struggle to score. They like to shoot threes, near basket shots. Illinois is top 10 defense, and I think they are going to be locked in for this game. So I think they cover this short spread. Portland State versus Montana. Now, this Portland State team hasn't really played a very hard schedule, which is my only concern. But on paper, I think they're the slightly better team than Montana. Record indicates that they're pretty much equal. But I think they're going to find success in where they like to shoot, which is near basket and boards. I think they have a solid advantage on both of those fronts on the offensive side. And this Grizzlies team, yeah, they're also going to find some success as well. But again, I don't think they're not going to find much success on the boards. I think this line is a little bit too much for this Portland State team that's been playing really well. They're ranked 4th in momentum. They're just playing really well lately, and I think they go on the road here. Probably end up taking an early lead, and the Montana comes back near the end and wins. But I think Portland State can cover this game. Oregon UCLA. I wanted to really slam UCLA here, but the Oregon team seems to show up a lot when they're playing on the road, and they played much harder competition. But I do think this UCLA team at home has been a bigger beast than usual, and I think they do show up to this game. This Big Ten is getting really competitive, especially near the top. I think this game matters a lot, and when you're in this kind of battle, you want to win your home games. So I think UCLA's defense shows up big time here, and I think the difference maker is going to be the turnovers from Oregon. And finally, the last game. Now, this Grand Canyon team has been blowing teams out of the water, and the Seattle team has been atrocious. But Seattle's played significantly harder teams. This Grand Canyon has played a bunch of bums. They're blowing out mostly bad teams. And the one thing that Grand Canyon does is that they're not really a phenomenal shooting team. Like, they don't shoot anything in the top 100. But they're putting up 100 points. How? Because they get a shit ton of points off of the boards and steals. They play just extremely fast-paced, and they're running around all the time. But the Seattle team takes care of their ball decently well. I don't think they're going to give up that many turnovers, maybe 10 or 11, when Grand Canyon typically, wins these games with 20-plus steals. And Seattle is really good at defending their own boards. They're one of the best teams, top 25, in limiting second-chance opportunities. And they've been doing that against a much harder competition. So I think Grand Canyon, the shots aren't going to fall as per usual. And when they don't fall, I think this Seattle team is going to get the boards. On the other side, this Grand Canyon team is a pretty decent defensive team. But I think Seattle can do just enough here to cover this 11-point number on the road, where Grand Canyon typically, Seattle has been playing better, and Grand Canyon doesn't seem to show up as much as at home than they do on the road. So that is everything I'm betting for today. Betting, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games. So we'll see how today goes. College basketball, especially around January and February, starts getting a little harder to predict because teams are playing either much harder or much weaker, depending on if they have a chance to make their tournaments. So I got to start looking more at conference stats rather than season-long stats, because a lot of things start changing in terms of how well they're playing. So some of these bets might look really stupid, but I do think that they're good spots just based off of recent performance. So yeah, that's everything. If you have any questions on any totals or anything, leave them down below, and I'll get to them before the games start. Thank you so much for all the subscribers, and I really appreciate all the support, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.